Welcome to Layer of the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. On today's episode, I have a special guest joining me as we are going to be discussing the new Technical Ecstasy Super Deluxe box set. Joining me here to take on this Super Deluxe challenge is Darren. Darren is no stranger here to the Layer. He's been here many a times, my most requested guest to bring back. He's back. Darren and I also have a Black Sabbath podcast that we do together called Into the Void, a Black Sabbath podcast. So the theme for today's episode is we're going to be focusing on the box set itself. But if you want to hear me and Darren go way in depth into the Technical Ecstasy album, check out our Black Sabbath podcast. I will leave a link below in the description for the Technical Ecstasy episode, so you can hear us going on and on about how much we love Technical Ecstasy. All right, Darren, thanks for coming back. I know you're a big fan of Technical Ecstasy, as am I. We were both super excited about this box set. So what are your early thoughts on this set?
Well, I was really surprised that they put it out when they did. I figured if they did put it out at all, it would probably be one of the last ones. I'm surprised it came out before Master of Reality or Sabbath Bloody Sabbath or the self-titled album. But here it is, and I not just because I love the album, you know I do, and anybody who's heard our podcast knows how much you and I both love this album. But I have to say, I think that this one has the most bang for the buck. The check boxes are consistent with the other ones. We've got the poster, we've got the book, we've got a live recording.
Tour program too.
We've got a remaster, the tour program. I think that's consistent across the board with all the box sets. This one though, okay, so I'll start from the beginning. When I like to go in order. So when I opened it up, I looked at it and turned it over, looked at all the contents and everything, and then I cracked it open. The first thing I pulled out was the remaster, and that's the first thing I put on. So I'm listening to the remaster, and I'm not really that thrilled about it. It's to me, it sounds kind of compressed. I'm not, an audio engineer or anything, but I do listen to a lot of music. I listen to a lot of music on vinyl. And comparing it to my experience listening to the original master, and I have a few different copies of this album and outside of the box set. I've got the 10-year war box with, I think it was a 2014 remaster on that. I've got a Rhino version. I've got a BMG version, and I've got two older versions. I've got the Warner Brothers version, and I've got a German Vertigo version. I don't have a UK Vertigo version yet. But anyway, so I've got some experience. I got a lot of experience with this album, and so when I put this new remaster on, to me it sounded kind of compressed. It sounded very flattened out. When I listened to even the original Warner Brothers version, there's more depth to it. It's better. It just sounds like a better production. So I was let down by the remaster. Moving on, the next thing was the remix, and I'm thinking, man, I hope this is good, because it's kind of like with me with this album. It's like you don't want to mess with it too much. What can you do with it that you're not disrupting the overall original vibe? And I gotta say, I think it's Steven Wilson. Is it Steven Wilson that does the remix? Wow. Yeah. I mean, everything is intact. Nothing is so drastically different that it takes anything away from the original record. But, and I'm going to try to describe this as best I can. To me, when I was listening to it, it sounded like a modern recording, but not in the way where they were using modern recording technique.
Yeah. In clarity, it's like
insofar as the clarity, the separation was great. So obviously, you know, we've come so far in studio engineering at this point where you can take these old analog reels, I'm assuming, and you can run them through some sort of process where you get a better fidelity, a better sound quality, and a better separation. And that's where this box set is really cool. And just looking at reviews online and you know, social media and stuff, just about everybody that's bought this seems pretty happy with it, and I'm pretty happy with it too. Like I said, getting off to a rocky start with the remaster, but moving into the remix, very happy. And what's cool about the remix too is, like I said, there's more sonic clarity. You can hear, and you and I talked about this when we were like, when we first, I guess we got it and we were like exchanging notes. You mentioned it and I noticed it too. Geezer's bass.
And
Yeah, I mean, it really
it just jumps right out,
yeah,
especially and right off the bat, especially in the song Backstreet Kids, which is the
yeah,
first song
yeah,
on the record. And to me, this Steve Wilson remix is the highlight of this box. And Steve Wilson, he's getting this reputation now because he's done this with other bands too. He went through most of the Jethro Tull catalog, all of the 70s, I believe all the 70s Tull stuff and some of the 80s stuff. And he
done
has
some
what you
yes
just,
too.
what's that?
He's done some yes too. I think he's
Right,
done
exactly.
most of the
And
yes.
he's getting known for what you just described it, very well, where he's not changing anything per se. He's just adding clarity to the whole mix, which is causing things to jump out now because of the clarity, like the bass playing that we just mentioned. For everybody out there, I did a video quite a while back, but of the difference between a remaster and a remix. So in this box set, you're getting a perfect example of this. Darren talked about the remaster of the album, which is they're not really messing with any levels. They're just adding an EQ to it, changing stuff. And a remix where they're actually going in and they're playing a little bit with some of the things. But Steve Wilson does it in such a gentle way that you don't feel offended, like, oh my gosh, the guitar is like crazy loud now, or these vocals are nuts. It's like, it's not going to throw you off. It's just going to allow you to, like we just mentioned, hear all these little details and stuff that are just going to sort of jump out at you. I'm sure you had the same experience. I've listened to this album thousands of times,
Yeah.
And when I was listening to that remix, there were things that I was like at the end of Dirty Women, there's these vocal harmonies, Dirty Women. I mean, I heard those, but I never noticed what the two voices were doing. It's very Beatle-esque,
Yeah.
and it just jumped out. I was like, whoa, that is a really cool harmony. And there were just
Yeah.
little spots all over, little keyboard things, lots of bass things. So I was like, whoa, I never noticed that before.
Yeah. And that's really cool because it is bringing attention. It's not, it's hard for me to explain it. It's not making it sound like it's a different version of the album.
Right.
It sounds like the same version, but there's things that are more noticeable, and it really works to the overall enjoyment of the album. Again, I will I only listen to the remix from now on? No. But did I enjoy listening to it? Will I pop it out again? I probably will, but I'm always, my go-to is always going to be the original mix, the original master. But I really enjoyed it, and like you said, I mean, uh, for the occasion of a box set, and kind of like what it is, it's like a celebratory type of thing. It's like a party in a box. It's a party for technical ecstasy. So if you're a fan of this album, I know that it's not necessarily inexpensive, but if you're a big fan of the album and you feel that it's worth, $100 or so, you won't be disappointed. I think it's money well spent if you really like this album. And I know a lot of people don't. We do, and there are a lot of people that do, and it doesn't disappoint. So yeah, the remix, highly impressed. We're moving along. I'm pretty happy about that. So the next record is the outtakes. Kitchen of Glare. Yeah, we both okay. And it's essentially all the songs except there's two versions of "She's Gone." They've got an outtake version and an instrumental mix. And the instrumental mix is pretty cool, but uh, it's there for posterity. I don't think it's really. Uh, I'm not gonna take the box set out, pull this record out, and listen to the instrumental mix of "She's Gone" on a regular basis. But it's cool to have. It's a curious thing. But what we do get are, the outtakes and alternative mixes. You basically get kind of like a bare bones version of some of these songs, and you can kind of
Yeah.
hear the wheels turning, which is really cool. If you're like I said, I keep coming back. If you're an enthusiast, if you're enthusiastic about this record, and then you get to this point in the box set where you can hear the songs kind of being worked up. It's really cool. It's really interesting.
And I think it's done. I agree. And what's especially interesting about it is because of there's a lot of keyboards on Technical Ecstasy,
Yeah.
relative to other Black Sabbath albums. You're hearing all these, the keyboards sort of jump out more. You're hearing the keyboards, what they're sort of doing. And that to me is cool. And I think that they should have followed this format with the volume 4 box set. Because for everybody out there, up to this point, they've released the Paranoid box set, a volume 4 box set, Sabotage, and Technical Ecstasy. The volume 4 box set has a lot of outtakes on it, which, although interesting, how many versions of Wheels of Confusion was there in the outtakes thing? It was a bit much. They should have trimmed it down to one album the way it is on here. They should have had Steve Wilson on the volume 4 box set. Steve Wilson only handles those outtakes. He should have done a remix of the album. They just should have followed the same format,
Yeah.
in my opinion, because I think, the outtakes, is it something you're going to listen to a million times? Probably not, but it's still real interesting, especially with the keyboards and stuff going on, hearing them work on the songs. And as one record, it's okay, because I don't think you get any, you do not get, okay, well, you get you don't get any song, She's Gone, twice. You get an instrumental and an outtake version of She's Gone, but you're not getting like 6 versions of, Gypsy or something like that.
No, it's not overkill the way that the volume
Right.
is.
Exactly, which is what I really.
Yeah, by the time I got finished listening to the volume 4 box set, I hated Wheels of Confusion.
Yeah, I mean, it's and there isn't that much. I mean, again, it's sort of interesting, but on here, it isn't so much like them starting and stopping like on the volume 4 box set. You had like Supernaut. They tried to start Supernaut like 3 times or something, and it just sort of, again, interesting. But here, this is kind of more like a first run through. They pretty much play the songs all the way through. You're just not hearing the overdubs yet. You're not hearing some of the guitar overdub things. Like I think there's one of the songs where the guitar solo isn't quite there yet. Some of the spots don't have the keys there yet. Some of the spots have the keys a lot louder. I found it really interesting, and I wish they had handled volume 4. And I wish Sabotage had some outtakes on it, because that's another album that has a lot of things going on, and it would have been interesting to hear sort of early stripped down versions.
To hear the formation of some of the songs, because there are some ambitious things going on Sabotage. And it was kind of disappointing, but I guess they were limited to what was available. And fortunately, there was a lot more material available to compile a box set of Technical Ecstasy anyway. So like I said, I have all the box sets that have been released so far. This is my favorite. Again, not just because I love the album, but I think just as far as content goes, I think it's really good, really well put together. Okay, so moving along. Now we get into the double live album, and I have a lot of bootlegs in general. I have a lot of live recordings of Black Sabbath from 1969 through, I don't know, 2005, I guess. and I have quite a few from 1976, but I have not been able to pinpoint exactly where these live recordings, or I think it's just one concert. I think it could be Pittsburgh, it could be Texas, but I'm not really sure because they've been remastered in such a way where it took some of the more noticeable characteristics that I would use to
Yeah.
identify some of the boots. They've taken or they've glossed some of that out. So it's really harder for me anyway, in my ears, to identify which shows these were taken from. And it's also curious that they don't tell you where it's from.
Yeah, they just
It
say
just says
live
live
world
on the
tour.
Technical Ecstasy tour.
Yeah,
That's curious to me. They did the same thing on Sabotage, and I think everybody knew that it was Rhode Island. Is that?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So my best guess is it's either Pittsburgh or Texas. I don't think it's from Hammersmith in the UK, but I could be wrong. Uh, Similar to the feedback that Sabotage got upon its release, the audio files were blowing a gasket because they were
Yeah,
saying that it was MP3 source. Now, for those that don't know, and when we talked about this on our Sabotage unboxing, but MP3 is a compressed form of music, whereas there's a greater dynamic range, is a true dynamic range, I suppose you could say, on a WAV file.
yeah,
With the MP3, everything's compressed, and the lower the bit rate, the more compressed it is. So, to my ears, and I don't have the means or even the desire to run this through some kind of an analytical thing where I can identify what bit rate it is or discern it, the wave from the MP3. My main priority was to put this on, kick back, and enjoy the listen, not get so
yeah.
wrapped up in the. But there are people that live for that sort of thing, and God bless them, and there's nothing wrong with that. But to my ears, my untrained ears, if you'd have told me that it was a WAV file, or you told me it was directly from a source, it was the first generation, blah blah blah, I wouldn't doubt it. So I do think that, and I don't doubt that the people that are saying that it's MP3 sourced are wrong. They're probably right. But what I'm saying is, I think that it's such a high bit rate that it would probably be like a 320 or
Yeah,
256, I think.
320. Yeah, that's what people are saying. That's
And
the highest bit rate you have for an MP3, I believe.
yeah, and you're so close to wave at that point, and not to not to piss off the audio files, but I think to the average person, you're not going to notice a difference. So anybody that's reading it and they're they're thinking, wow, this is a lot of money. I'm not really sure if I want to spend the money on this. Let me read some reviews, and they're hearing a lot, because I have seen people talking about it, like, oh, I heard it was MP3 sourced, and they didn't say that what they heard was that it was just the live portion of the box. They said that they heard it was MP3 sourced, and that would definitely be a deterrent, because obviously if you're paying over $100 for a box set, you want the best sound quality that there is available. So the word is, and the rumor is, that some of this is MP3 source, but what I'm saying is, you're not going to know. Chances are you're not going to notice a difference, and it didn't in any way interfere with my enjoyment of the live album. But the content of the live album, where are we here, is a decent set. Songs are long, so there's not. It's a quality over quantity, but it is a two discs record set, gatefold, back, side 7, because you're supposed to go in order, I guess. Side 7, Symptom of the Universe, that was the opener ever since Sabotage Tour. War Pigs, great version of War Pigs. Gypsy, awesome version of Gypsy, which is my personal favorite off of Technical Ecstasy. It's great to hear this live. It sounds great. They're on point. It sounds to me like they walked right out of the studio, went on stage, and perform this. Ozzy's voice is on point. All the little nuances, all the changes, you know, the progression, the transitions are they're all on point. So that's great. Black Sabbath is Black Sabbath, always a heavy hitter. This version's really good. All moving parts stand still. Really cool to hear
Yeah.
technical ecstasy material on this.
Yeah.
Sounds really cool. The keyboards, you know, Gerald Woodruff's keyboards
Yeah.
are like that funky like Fat Albert thing that he's got going on.
Clavinet. Yeah, he's got like this clavinet sound going.
Yeah. I call it the Fat Albert thing.
Yeah.
But it's really cool. I mean, it's a little bit dated, but it's interesting to hear it. You know, you're not, you know, I mean, it's on the original master, but you don't, it's kind of lower in the mix, so you don't really hear too much. Dirty Women, one of the better songs, again, one of the better songs, one of my favorites off of Technical Ecstasy. That's good to hear that live. Drum solo, guitar solo. I love Bill Ward's drum solos because it sounds like he's fallen down a staircase with his drums most of the time. Sometimes he's on point, sometimes he's well phrased, but most of the time he's just going for it. He's hitting them in all random order and everything else. It's just like it's very energetic. Iommi's guitar solos could get a little bit, you know, they can overstay their welcome a little bit, but this is cool. Electric Funeral. How many times have we heard that live? Not very many. So it's cool to have that.
And not from this era. Yeah.
Yeah. Snowblind. I've always loved Snowblind live. I think in any live version I've heard, I almost prefer it over the studio version. I like Ozzy's inflections. I like the energy in the song when it's performed live. So this is a great version. And it ends with Children of the Grave, and pretty faithful to the original version. Pretty spirited version of it. Good way to end the show and the double live record. So it's cool. Sounds good. Good performance. I wouldn't say it's necessarily the highlight of the box, but it could be for some people if you're into live recordings.
I think that, you know, to just touch on a few points, like you said, I think the sound quality is great. What I especially like about it is that there's the guitars in one channel, the keyboards are in another. So like you mentioned, all moving parts. You really hear the keyboard because it's live. There's only one guitar. Keyboard's one channel, guitar the other channel. I really love at the end of all moving parts, they jam out on that riff and Iommi extends the solos.
Yeah.
He goes off on that and he has a great solo. You mentioned the drum solo and the guitar solo later on. I find it interesting that they varied this up enough between tours that it's still interesting. It's just not a rehash of, you know, whatever jam session they had from previous tours. So I find that interesting. Now, some people, to go back to this MP3 thing, the issue that some people have is that why wouldn't you use the best source that you could get, which would be the WAV file? People are saying that this was taken from a King Biscuit show, which is those original tapes are owned by a company called Wolfgang's Vault or Wolfie's Vault or something like that.
Wolfgang's Vault, yeah.
Wolfgang's Vault, which supposedly is very hard to get material from them. So the speculation, of course, this is all unconfirmed. These are just people talking on the internet, that this is why they couldn't get the original files, the original tapes. So they're using a sourced thing. Now, if it was an FM broadcast, people should know, if it's an FM broadcast, it is being mixed to a certain degree. That's why you're getting stereo separation amongst the instruments. It's not a bootleg in the sense that somebody brought a tape recorder into a arena and just recorded it that way. That is not the case. Same thing on the Sabotage box set. That was a radio broadcast. That's why the quality of that is pretty good. Now, it would be interesting if they did have the original tapes, like they did with from the parent, where was the Live at Last, from the Volume 4 box.
I think that was at the Rainbow in the UK.
Right, and they had the original tapes and did a remix of that whole thing. They were able to remix it. It would have been interesting to hear that here, but I'm not complaining. I think it sounds great. I think Ozzy sounds good. I think the set list is cool. You know, again, you get some goodies in here. Electric Funeral, something they didn't play a lot during this era. You get Dirty Women, All Moving Parts, and Gypsy. from Technical Ecstasy. So for me, I think it's just the whole set box set just works. Yeah, with the remix album, with the outtakes, with this live thing here, I don't feel like there's any real point where I'm like tired or fatigued of any particular thing. I think it's a great box set. Like you said already, this is my favorite box set so far from all the ones that have been released.
Yeah. Interesting about the Wolfgang Vault thing, and I know that they're like a museum, but they do sell things. There's a way that you can buy posters, I think, and tour memorabilia, rock music memorabilia, a lot of Grateful Dead stuff, a lot of old live posters and things like that. I wasn't aware that they curated, I guess that's the word, old live recordings from the King Biscuit.
That's what people are saying on the internet. Again, it's it's unconfirmed. So
Yeah.
take it for what it is. That's what people are speculating as to why. Because why wouldn't they use, if they had access to the tapes or to a WAV file or to a first generation source, they would use it.
When I referenced the shows that I thought that it sounded similar to, that it could be, when I referenced Pittsburgh, Texas, and it might have been Ohio. I don't have them with me right now. I should have probably been more prepared, pulled them out. The versions I have are WAV. They're, to my knowledge, and the people that made these and put these copies of these recordings out there are very critical about things being MP3 sourced.
Yeah.
And what the lineage is, the generation, and I very rarely will have a live show that's MP3 source. So the versions that I have are I'm not sure what generation, but they're not compressed. They're in WAV format. So it's not hard. I don't think you could have taken any of these shows that I have, and you could have used that. You could have remastered that.
Which is what people were saying. The same thing with the Sabotage box. Like, there's WAV versions of these shows out there. Why didn't they use them? But who knows, and again, in the end, honestly, the average person, not to start an audiophile feud, the average person is not going to notice. It still sounds good, and for what it is, I'm just happy to have it. I'm really digging the fact that all these box sets are coming with shows. Yeah. We talked on our Black Sabbath podcast really early on about how missed opportunity it was that Black Sabbath never released a proper live album in the 70s.
Yeah.
And we're getting this now with every box set. We're getting all these great shows. So yeah. I'm loving it. Keep it coming. I'm looking forward to Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, and Never Say Die.
Yeah, me too. And when we started talking on the podcast, I think during our Technical Ecstasy, I think we're wondering if there's going to, do you think there'll be a Technical Ecstasy box set the way that there was a Paranoid?
Yeah.
I think maybe that's where we were in the timeline at that point. And we were like, I kind of doubt it. It's not a very popular album. But if they did, they could use some of this. They could use some live recordings. I know that I forget what we talk about, but we basically compile the box set in our discussion of Technical Ecstasy. Yeah. Lo and behold, a few months later, here it is. Maybe it's more than a few months. I think. No, actually, I think we did that in April or May. I think, late spring. So yeah, I mean, now, one theory about going to greater lengths to get original live recordings and things like that, it may be a cost factor. It may be more economical for them to go with a high bitrate MP3 to limit the amount of studio time that's involved with it, to limit the the engineering that might have to be involved, so that we can keep these things at a reasonable price or a consistent price point. Because they all are then the consistent price point of about 110, 120 bucks. Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of content. You get a book, you get a poster, a tour program, you get 5 records. I mean, it would be really easy. And there's other box sets that have probably less content that go for twice as much. So it could be just a way to make them a little bit more economical. And if there is any audio quality sacrifice, it's very minimal, you know.
One minor little quibble, and this is really splitting hairs here, but the tour program and the book that come in the box, in the book, they just repeat a lot of the stuff from the tour program, which I thought a lot of the, you know, a lot of the discussion or whatever, and I found that a tad bit disappointing. I was hoping that they would give us, it just seemed like they just repeated some of the text from the tour program and just put it inside the book, which I thought was a little disappointing. I was hoping that they would give us a little bit more, talking about the album a little bit more, but that's a very minor quibble. I think it's cool that they put the tour program in here because this is, I think, the first box that they've done that, right? Put a
No,
tour
they did it
program.
with Paranoid. I think they've done them with all of them so far.
Tour program?
Yeah, yeah, I'm pretty sure. I know that they did it with Paranoid. There is a one of these books, a hardback
Yeah.
in volume 4, and there's also, like, I could get it, but I'm pretty sure there's also a tour. I think that's they have this checklist of things that they make pretty consistent from box set to box set. There's always a poster, there's always a hardcover book, and pretty sure that there was always a live album. And I'm pretty sure there's always a tour program. So there's definitely one for Paranoid, and there's one for Sabotage too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just
But
one
anyway,
last comment too. I wanted to go back to the remaster of the album. I agree with you that this remaster is divisive to a lot of people. It sounds like they're using a pretty radical EQ curve on this remaster, kind of like a smiley face. There's a lot
a
of
popular solution to remaster.
top end and there's some bottom end to it, sort of the extremes. And
Scoop the
I'm
mid.
okay with it. I know what you're talking about. It does seem a little dynamically compressed. I'm kind of okay with it, but it is a little bit jarring. It does seem a little extreme what they've done with the remaster. So for some people, that if you've been living with, an older version of this album, that may really sort of throw you back a little bit when you hear it for the first time. But it's, some people love it, some people don't care for it, but it's different. It's certainly a different remaster of this album than,
Yeah,
anything that's come before it. So I guess it's just up to the individual listener there what your
it
preferences
is.
are.
It's subjective. But like I said, when we started talking about the remaster, there's so many different remasters. There's the Rhino version.
Yeah, there's
There's the
right.
UK versions of the 10-Year War and the single albums that came in and around that time. There's a BMG version. And I mean, some of them probably overlap. There's probably some of the Rhino, the Warner Brothers. It might be a little bit of overlap between some of the BMG and the Rhino. I'm not really sure, but there's a lot of different versions that have been put out recently that you can buy. If you were to go out on a quest to find as many versions of Technical Ecstasy that have been pressed recently within the last 5 years, there's conceivably about 5 or 6,
Yeah.
and none of them are really that great. And that's the thing.
Forget
It's like,
about like Paranoid. If you wanted to try that album has been remastered so many times.
yeah,
It's bordering on ridiculous at this point. But
yeah, and there's not. I can't say that any of them sound better. I can't actually. I mean, I do really like the versions of the albums that are in the 10-Year War box set. The way that the albums were restored to their original presentation with all the uh, things that were unique to each release, even down to the texture of the album cover on Sabotage. It's meticulously preserved or recreated to the original pressing, the UK original pressings, and I think that's really cool. Sound quality wise, I think those are the best remasters that I've heard. Of course, they're also pulling from the UK masters, so there's that works to its advantage. But secondary to that, and that wasn't available in the US, you had to try to like finagle a way to get it off of Discogs from an overseas seller, and it wasn't cheap. Worth it, I guess. but it wasn't inexpensive. These are more economical, and I think they're just a little bit shy of the sound quality that you would get on those UK masters. Um, so it's cool for people that maybe missed the opportunity to get the 10-year war box set, or weren't able to track it down. These box sets, Paranoid, Volume 4, the Sabotage, Technical Ecstasy, are all pretty easily obtainable. You can get them from Amazon or order them from your favorite mom and pop store. I mean, they're not hard to find. Getting back to the book, you mentioned that there was some overlap between the tour program and the content of the book. What I like about the book is it gives you, it's almost like it narrates the album, the history of the album. And I think that's what makes the book unique from the tour program. When I'm looking through the book, I'm seeing news clips,
Yeah,
the time.
that I really like. They do that in all these books. They have little
Yeah,
clippings
it
and
takes you into the
show.
context. I've never seen this picture of Ozzy before. It's really
Right.
cool. Ads, UK
Yeah.
trade ad. Is it in frame? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And also the formats of the singles. You know, we have like the covers of the
Yeah.
45s.
Cool,
I think that's
yeah.
really neat. If you are a collector, if you're like a completist and you want to know, well, what's available, what don't I have? Well, I mean, this could kind of be a checklist for you for that. You know, different 45s of singles. The It's All Right single. Didn't know there was one. Now I do because of this book.
See, we learned something.
But that's, you know, and it gives you a narrative of the historical context of this album, and I think that's pretty cool. It gives you like, it's that extra dimension. We have the audio portion of it, and we have the visual portion of it, which is cool. Speaking of visual portion, my only gripe with these box sets, and I know that, you know, we're in this modern times, I think we could probably include a DVD of some live footage.
Yeah.
A little disappointing that there isn't any, you know, video. I know the Metallica box sets, there's always a lot of video. There's a lot of things like that to feast your eyes on. The only thing we really have to feast our eyes on is this book, the tour program, and a poster, which, if you're like me, you're never going to hang up. You're going to leave that in your box set. So it would be cool to have some more visual stimulation with these things, but, you know, as far as the audio portion of it, I think it's on point.
I agree. All right, well, there you go. There's Darren and I's thoughts on the new Technical Ecstasy Super Deluxe box set. I think it's safe to say that we really like it. If you are even if you're just a casual fan of Technical Ecstasy, if it's not one of your favorites, I've got a high school Sabbath fan buddy that Technical Ecstasy is not his least favorite of the Ozzy albums, and he sent me a message and was like, man, I'm really digging this box set. It's making me appreciate this album. It's sort of shining a new light on this album for me. So we highly recommend it. Let us know in the comments down below. I know there's a lot of Sabbath fans out there. What do you guys think? Who out there has gotten? I know some of you out there have this box set. I've heard it mentioned. So let us know in the comments what you guys think of the box set. What do you think of the live shows? What do you think of these box sets in general, these Sabbath box sets? You know, are you kind of digging the format and everything?
One thing before we sign off, I see people say these are cash grabs. I don't know what that means. Does it mean that somebody's coming to your door with this box set and forcing you to buy it? You're not under any duress whatsoever. You're not under any pressure to buy these things. It's cool to have them. I'm glad they're putting them out there. I hope they continue to do this. I can't see that they won't. I can't see that there's not. I mean, if there's a Technical Ecstasy, you know there's got to be a Master of Reality.
Yeah.
You know there's going to be a.
But it's never say die. I'm not going to be able to totally sleep at night until, you know, I'm just a little bit nervous. I'm a little bit nervous.
You think so? I think because there is a Technical Ecstasy, I think that confirms that there's going to be a Never Say Die. Because I think Never Say Die, probably gets more love than, in my experience, than Technical Ecstasy. Technical Ecstasy, people love to put this album down.
But Black Sabbath has a way of just, frustrating the fans, getting so close to giving us what we want, and then just like, pulling it all away from us at the last second.
Yeah, they do. But they're on a roll now, so let's hope they keep it up.
And you said, okay, when people say this cash grab thing, here's the thing for everybody, for all these box sets, even if you have, or let's just talk about this one, even if you have Technical Ecstasy already, and you're happy with whatever version of Technical Ecstasy you have, and you're like, I don't want another version of the Technical Ecstasy album, I don't need another remaster. That's cool. I still think that there's enough, even if you take the remaster out of this box, I still think that there's enough to give you the value. The remix, the outtakes, the live album, the book, the tour program, I think that is enough in itself to make this box set worth it, in my opinion.
I agree, because I don't think I'm going to listen to the remaster again.
My original version, that's my go-to version.
Yeah, but I really do like the remix. So if I do crack this box set open from time to time, it's going to be to pull out the remix. I really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the remix probably better than any other portion of the other box sets that have come out so far. Fortunate for me, I love this album. I would be really angry if I didn't like this album and this remix sounded so good, and my favorite album was Volume 4. I'd be like, why did they do this for Volume 4? Why did they waste it on Technical Ecstasy?
I agree. I wish they had let Steve do these remixes on. I think if he had done everything from Volume 4 and later, it would have been really interesting. I don't think Paranoid and Master of Reality, those necessarily needed that treatment, but Volume 4 on, I think, could have really been something special.
Well, they haven't done Master of Reality yet, and I agree. I don't think it really needs a deep dive into remixing or anything. I think it's cool the way it is. Never Say Die, though. I hope Steven Wilson does Never Say Die, because that's one of the things. There's a lot going on, and we're not going to get into that because we do get into it on our podcast. There's a lot going on with that album, and not the least of which is the really anemic production value that has. I would love to see that album
warmed up, beefed
up, a little bit of weight to it, and I'm on the verge. It's my least favorite Ozzy era Sabbath, but I think with the right treatment, the right remix or remaster, it could make a big difference to me. So I hope that happens.
And when that comes out, I promise you, we will be back, me and Darren here, talking about, so we'll be back for all the other box sets too, because we love Black Sabbath. All right. Any other thoughts before we sign off here?
I don't think so. I think we covered it. I'm good.
All right. We give it the thumbs up here, the Technical Ecstasy Super Deluxe box set. Let us know in the comments what you guys think. And until we see you again, make sure you stay heavy, stay metal.